Auditory Hotness, back again. 2 peas in a pod. Larry June, Jay Worthy, London Drugs, Sean House. They're first together. Awesome. All right, so you've got Larry June, who's an MC from San Francisco. Love his style. You got Jay Worthy, same thing, originally from Vancouver, now in LA. Fun fact, stepbrother of Grimes. And then you've got Sean House, who is the producer of this album. And Sean House and Jay Worthy collaborate as London Drugs, so that's why you see the name here. So 2 Peas in a Pod is being released on JDF and The Free Minded. And this is their first collaboration together, but look down below in the description. I'll have the links to all of their individual work. So ask yourself, do you enjoy old school 80s, 90s, golden era hip hop? Smooth, lyrical delivery, and lyrics that mostly reference the world's oldest profession and their managers. If so, good thing you're here, because we're about to go through our 5-step review process. Step 1, the album cover. Come on, man, look at this album cover. You know what you're getting yourself into, right? Just look at it. You know what you're getting yourself into. Let's take a look at those track listings and times. So 2 Peas in a Pod is right on that line between being a full-length LP and an EP. I think they're calling it a full-length album. It is 31 minutes long. The key takeaways. 1, let's get this out of the way right now. The majority of the lyrical content found on this album is around pimps, women, and the streets. I mean, the name, 2 Peas in a Pod. 2 peas. Two pimps in a pod here. But let's be honest. Any album that starts off with Miles Davis talking about his experience in the game, I'm sold. Totally sold. And that is just one of the many examples of the words of wisdom from some of the finest proprietors of the game sprinkled throughout this album. 2, not all, but most of this album for sure has a late 80s, early 90s hip-hop vibe to it. So here's an example. There are references to Eazy-E on this album, and if you're familiar with his flow and cadence, then that's a pretty good example of what you're going to hear. Side note, in my opinion, Down to the Last Roach by Eazy-E is one of the most underrated songs in hip-hop and also one of the most psychedelic hip-hop songs recorded. Key takeaway 2.5. If you're liking this review as much as pimps like the ism, don't forget, subscribe and turn on your notifications so I can be at your digital corner every single night. 3. Now make no mistakes, those late 80s and early 90s hip-hop references I was talking about are most certainly on this album. However, the longer that it goes, I feel like it kind of drifts away from that a little bit and becomes more modernized. Now, the lyrical content remains the same. There is no doubt about that. But just the style and the delivery and the flow have a more updated feel to them from both Larry June and Jay Worthy. 4, I definitely have not given a large enough nod to Sean House's production on 2 Peas in a Pod. The sound of this album is crisp, clean, but definitely has that stylized approach to it that almost gives a Silk Sonic thing without being goofy, but just has this super time-specific but modernized feel to it that has those 80s and 90s references while still feeling new. With that being said, you're definitely getting those 808 drum sounds. You're getting the 303 bass lines, the Marcus Miller bass lines, the electric keys. Like, you feel like you're at a Commodores concert. Those vibes are on this album, and they have to be there because it gives the whole album this really tied together sound, which is really fun to listen to. Give me those tracks of hotness. Track 3, Big Funds, featuring CeeLo Green. I love CeeLo Green, first off. This is an example of that Eazy-E flow with the dopest old school beat behind it. Love this track. Track 5, Maybe the Next Time, featuring Rock Marciano. Speaking of Eazy-E, this song literally references Eazy-E in it. Plus, you get these Bootsy Collins-like vocal deliveries on this song, which, why wouldn't you? And then track 9, Hotel Bel Air. This track's a little bit slower. I love the strings on it, and it's got this really stylistic sound to it that makes you feel kind of like you're at the Bel Air Hotel. Which, speaking of Bel Air, I guess we know the reason why Will needed to leave Philadelphia. Smacking someone like that must have been getting worked on the blacktop in Philly. But anyway, 5, when should you listen to this album? 2 Peas in a Pod is a very fun album, but I would say the most appropriate time to listen to this would be while you're cruising around in like a 1988 Lincoln Town Car. Now, like a really nice one with updated rims on it, you know, but maybe the upholstery's original. Either way, that's how you should listen to this album. Due to some of the throwback feels on this, I think if you're having like maybe a date night at home, this actually would be a good album, as long as you're both on the same page regarding the lyrical content. However, I don't know if you would want to bust this out on like a first date though, unless that first date is like a Pretty Woman style situation. And in which case, she may treat you so nice, you never let her go. If you dig Two Peas in a Pod, I recommend the following. Check out Coast Contra and their newest Apartment 505. Definitely a different theme than Two Peas in a Pod. However, this album has that throwback late 80s, early 90s hip-hop group thing going on that you just don't hear right now. And then check out Denzel Curry's newest Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, which also has some of these old throwback sounds to it. I'm digging this. I love that era of hip hop, and I think it's really exciting and interesting to see these younger groups pulling that in and just giving it an updated facelift. It makes for very unique listening. So give Two Peas in a Pod a listen. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is a very fun album. It sounds fantastic, and all of the artists on here are great. Don't forget, come back here every single day to Auditory Hotness, where I'm bringing you all differing styles of music. So